Good morning, everyone. Today we'll be discussing a pivotal case in international law, which is Germany against Italy. This case provides a profound exploration of the principle of jurisdictional immunity, a foundational concept that safeguards the sovereignty of states by limiting the authority of one nation's courts over another. So, jurisdictional immunity is the cornerstone of international law, ensuring that states are protected from being sued in foreign courts without their consent. However, in the case of Germany against Italy, it challenges this principle. It raises the question, should a state retain its immunity even in cases involving atrocities as severe as those committed during World War II? So, this landmark case examined whether Italy violated Germany's jurisdictional immunity by allowing its judiciary to hear civil claims for damages related to Nazi-era war crimes. The implications of this case are far-reaching. It not only impacts the parties involved, but also touches on the broader issues at the intersection of state sovereignty, human rights, and the role of jus cogens norms, those peremptory principles of international law that allow no exceptions. In today's presentation, we will take you through the facts, legal arguments, and decisions that define this case. More importantly, we'll explore its broader impact on the evolution of international legal frameworks. This case forces us to reflect on the balance between respecting state sovereignty and addressing grave human rights violations. Let's begin by understanding the background of the dispute.
So for this slide, I will discuss about case overview. So the case is Germany against Italy, ICJ 2012. So the main issue for this case is whether Italy violated Germany's jurisdictional immunity by allowing civil claims for World War II atrocities. So for the sub-issues, we have two. The first is whether the ICJ ruled that Italy's actions were inconsistent with customary international law, which grants states immunity from foreign jurisdictions, even in cases involving war crimes or crimes against humanity. So the second sub-issues is the ICJ concluded that the gravity of Germany's World War II violations, despite being grave, did not override state immunity, as jus cogens norms did not automatically exclude immunity in such cases.
The court recalled that on 23 December 2008, the Federal Republic of Germany filed an application in instituted proceedings in the Court of Registry against the Italian Republic in respect of a dispute originating in violation of obligation under international law allegedly committed by Italy through its judicial practice, in that it has failed to respect the jurisdictional immunity which Germany enjoys under international law. Then the court further recalled that by an order of 4 July 2011, the court authorized Greece to intervene in the case as a non-party, insofar as this intervention was limited in the decision of Greek court, which were declared as enforceable in Italy.
So we are going to the questions part. The first is about jurisdictional immunity. The question is it available for acts committed by armed forces during an armed conflict? And the answer is yes. States have immunity for acts of their armed forces during war, as these are sovereign acts. The territorial tort exception does not apply to wartime operation. So the second question is about Italy's violation. The question is, did Italy violate Germany's jurisdictional immunity by allowing civil claims? So our answer is yes. Italy breached Germany's immunity by allowing civil claims for World War II atrocities. And the ICJ ruled that immunity is procedural and cannot be overridden by jus cogens violation or lack of reparations. So the third question is about court's decisions. The question is, do you agree with the decisions of the court, and why or why not? For our answer is yes, and because it upheld international law and state sovereignty. However, it failed to provide justice for victims, showing a need to reform how serious human rights violations are addressed.
Okay. Hi everyone, I will explain about the state immunity in civil claim and how it relates to our cases, German and Italy case. The first one is, what is state immunity in civil claim? State immunity is a legal principle that protects sovereign state from being sued in the court of another country. This concept is based on the idea of state equality, which means that one country should not interfere in the legal or judicial matters of another. Because of this, states are generally immune from civil lawsuit unless they waive their immunity or their action fall outside their sovereign power. In civil claim, state immunity prevents individual or organization from suing a state for wrong or violation, even in serious cases like human rights abuse or breach of international law. The purpose of this principle is to allow countries to carry out their sovereign duty without the risk of being subjected to foreign court. And how does this apply to our cases? In the German-Italy cases, state immunity was a central issue. After World War II, Italy court allowed lawsuit to be brought against Germany for the harm caused by Nazi crime. Victims of these atrocities sought compensation for the horrific act committed by the Nazis. Germany, however, argued that these actions were part of its sovereign function during the war, and that it should therefore be immune from legal claims. The case was taken to the International Court of Justice (ICJ), which ruled in favor of Germany. The ICJ reaffirmed the broad application of state immunity even in cases involving serious human rights violation. The court stated that Germany was immune from civil claim filed in Italy, emphasizing that state immunity applies even when a state's functions are deeply wrongful, such as war crime. The ICJ did acknowledge that there are exceptions to state immunity, especially for violation of jus cogens norms. These are fundamental principles of international law that can be violated. However, in these specific cases, the court found that this exception did not apply. For the conclusion, the German and Italy case highlight how state immunity operates as a powerful legal principle. Even in cases involving serious wrongdoing like war crime, the principle protects states from being held accountable in foreign court, although there are limited exceptions. That's all from me.
The territorial tort principle is a widely recognized concept in international law. It applies to cases where personal injury, death, or property damage occurs within a foreign state's territory and is caused by foreign state or its agents. This principle provides an exception to jurisdictional immunity under specific conditions. First, the harm must have occurred within the territory of the foreign state. Second, the tortfeasor must have been physically present in the territory at the time of the act. Italy relied on this principle to argue its case against Germany. Italy claimed that atrocities committed by the Germans armed forces during World War II, such as massacres, deportations, and forced labor caused harm within Italian territory. Based on the territorial tort principle, Italy argued that its court had jurisdiction to hear civil claims against Germany. To support this claim, Italy referred to both national practice and international conventions. These include Article 11 of the European Convention on State Immunity and Article 12 of the UN Convention Jurisdictional Immunities of States. Both provisions outline exceptions to state immunity for tortious acts occurring within the foreign state. However, the International Court of Justice, or ICJ, ultimately rejected Italy's argument. The court provided several reasons for its decision. First, it highlighted that acts committed by armed force during armed conflicts are explicitly excluded from the scope of the territorial tort principle. But the European Convention and the UN Convention make it clear that such acts fall outside the principle's application. The ICJ emphasized that customary international law upholds states' immunity for sovereign acts or acta juri imperi, even when harm is caused within the foreign state during wartime. Second, the ICJ ruled that the actions of the German armed forces during World War II, such as reprisals, deportations, and forced labor, were sovereign acts carried out as part of state policy during wartime. The court stressed that state immunity is a procedural rule which applies regardless of whether the underlying acts are lawful under international law. Third, the ICJ found no evidence in state practice or opinal juries to support the idea that customary international law permits exceptions to immunity for acts committed by armed forces during armed conflicts. It noted the absence of any legal framework denying immunity in such cases. Finally, the ICJ warned of the practical implications of accepting Italy's argument. Allowing civil claims against foreign states for military actions in foreign territories would undermine the principle of state immunity. It could also disrupt international relations and violate state sovereignty. In conclusion, the ICJ ruled that the territorial tort principle does not apply to acts committed by foreign armed forces during armed conflict, even if the harm occurred within the foreign state. By permitting civil claims against Germany for World War II, Italian courts violated Germany's jurisdictional immunity under customary international law.
What is the jus cogens? Jus cogens is defined by the Article 53 of Vienna Convention on the Law of Treaties, are universally accepted principle of international law. These norms, like the prohibition of murder, torture, and forced labor, allow no exception and invalidate treaties that conflict with them. Italy argued that Germany's violation of jus cogens norm during 1943 until 1945 override the principle of the sovereign immunity. They contended that such grave breaches of the international law should permit victims to seek justice. The court rejection. However, the court rejected this argument. It explained that jus cogens norm and state immunity are entirely different legal issue, while jus cogens norm dictate the legality of the action. State immunity pertains to jurisdiction where the state can be sued in another state court. No conflict between norms. The court emphasized that these principles do not conflict. Even if violation of jus cogens norms occurred, the customary international law on state immunity remain applicable. So we can see in a global precedent, the court noted that no national legal system have limited immunity, especially for jus cogens violation. Courts will likely consistently uphold state immunity even in cases involving such grave crimes. So, in the part of jus cogens, jus cogens norms are foundational to international law. They do not override the principle of state immunity. This case highlight the complex balance between the protecting universal right and respecting state sovereignty in international law.
Now, I will discuss the failures of compensation as highlighted in the Germany against Italy case. This case reflects critical shortcomings in international law, particularly in reconciling state sovereignty with justice for victims of grave violations. Let's dive into these failures across 5 key dimensions. First, let's examine the structural limitations of international law. So, for state immunity against individual justice, the ICJ reaffirmed the principle of state immunity. Even in cases involving grave violations like war crimes and crimes against humanity, states cannot be sued in foreign courts without their consent. This procedural protection shields states from accountability, leaving victims without a viable legal avenue for reparations. For the jus cogens paradox, Italy argued that Germany's violations of jus cogens norms, which are the highest principles of international law, should override sovereign immunity. However, the ICJ ruled that immunity is procedural, separate from the legality of actions. This stance has been criticized for creating a significant gap in justice for victims of heinous crimes. Now, let's talk about the failures of reparations mechanisms. Post-war agreements. Reparations were mostly addressed through intergovernmental agreements, such as those between Germany and Italy. Unfortunately, these agreements excluded many victims, like the Italian military internees, or AMANIs. AMANIs were denied prisoner of war status and subjected to forced labor, yet they were not compensated under Germany's 2000 Foundation for Remembrance, Responsibility and Future. Lack of direct compensation. Many victims, including civilians and forced laborers, were unable to receive adequate reparations. This oversight reveals the failure of international frameworks to ensure direct compensation to individuals. Let's move on to judicial failures in addressing individual claims. So, Italian courts and the ICJ rejection. Italian courts attempted to provide remedies by allowing claims against Germany. They even invoked principles like the territorial exception and the gravity of violations. However, the ICJ rejected these efforts, emphasizing that wartime acts by armed officers fall under sovereign immunity, also known as acte jure ibre. For the exclusion of jus cogens exceptions, the ICJ's decision failed to recognize exceptions to state immunity, even in cases involving violations of jus cogens norms. Some judges viewed this as a missed opportunity to evolve international law. Next, we'll examine the human rights and moral failures of this case. Now, we have the victims' rights undermined. The ICJ's decision prioritized state sovereignty over the rights of victims, which where critics argued that international law should evolve to reflect the imperative of addressing grave human rights violations. The impunity for grave violations. By upholding Germany's immunity, the ICJ indirectly perpetuated impunity for World War II atrocities. This decision was seen as an inconsistent, and it was inconsistent with moral and legal obligations to provide justice for victims. Finally, let's consider the broader implications for international justice. So, this was a missed opportunity for legal evolution. The ICJ's ruling exposed the rigidity of the current legal system, which struggles to balance sovereignty with accountability for international crimes. Judges like Ken Trinidad advocated for removing immunity in cases of delicta imperi, or crimes of empire, arguing that such crimes should never be shielded by sovereign immunity. Now, there was also a need for alternative redress mechanisms. The absence of effective mechanisms for reparations exacerbated the failures of this case. Victims were left without meaningful remedies, highlighting the urgent need for reforms in national law or international law. In conclusion, the failures of compensation in the Germany against Italy case underscores the limitations of international legal frameworks. While state immunity remains a cornerstone of international law, its application in cases of serious human rights violations raises profound ethical and legal challenges.
Okay, the next one, court's decision analysis. The first one, sovereign immunity. The ICJ ruled that states cannot be sued in foreign domestic courts without their consent, even for serious violation of international law. The second one, Italian courts breached Germany's immunity by allowing civil claims for Second World War atrocities. The third one, enforcement of Greek judgments. Italy violated international law by enforcing Greek rulings against Germany. The fourth one, basis for the court's jurisdiction. The ICJ's jurisdiction was based on Article 1 of the European Convention for the Peaceful Settlement of Disputes on 29 April 1957. And the last one, Greece's intervention. Greece was permitted to intervene in the case, specifically relating to the Greek court's decision in the Distomomaska, as the ICJ might need to consider this decision in light of state immunity principles.
The dicta and dissenting opinion regarding this matter. For the dicta, the SCJ emphasized that sovereign immunity remains a fundamental principle of international law, even when a state is accused of serious violation of jus cogens norms, which is peremptory norm. The court also clarified that jus cogens norms do not override the rule of state immunity in this context. However, there are three judges who have dissenting opinion. First, Judge Kokando Trinidad, by identifying the wider framework of the settlement of the dispute at issue, ineluctably linked to the imperative of the realization of justice, in particular in the international adjudication by the Court of Cases of the kind on the basis of fundamental consideration of humanity, whenever grave breaches of human rights and of international humanitarian law lie at their factual origin, as in the case discussed. He also argued that the court decision failed to adequately address the gravity of the crime committed and the right of the victim. Second, Judge Yusuf, by considering that the court has failed to seize a unique opportunity to clarify the law and to pronounce its test on the effect that the absence of other remedial venue for reparation could have on immunity before domestic crime. He also emphasized the importance of balancing state immunity with the need for accountability for serious international crime. The last one is Judge Edho Gajah. He criticized the majority for not considering the involving nature of international law and the need for exception to state immunity in case of grave violation of human rights. This because 9 out of 10 states which enacted legislation on foreign state immunity provide for a third exception. Some of these states consider that immunity nevertheless exists with regard to the conduct of foreign military force, but they only refer to visiting force, not to those of an occupying foreign state.
Next, we will go into the state immunity problems stated by Germany and Italy. Now, there are two sides of the argument. It is from Germany and Italy. Germany stated that Germany regards state immunity as international customary law and that duly implied should be upheld. On the other hand, Italy has a few arguments to deny Germany's state immunity. The first argument is that the European Convention on the Territorial Principle, where in this principle stated that customary international law allows state immunity on an act conducted by the armed forces, but Article 11 in this convention stated the contracting state cannot claim immunity from the jurisdiction of another contracting state in proceedings which relate to redress or for injury to the person or damage to tangible property. If the facts which occasion the injury or damage occurred in the territory of the state of the forum, which is Italy, and if the author of the injury or damage was present in the territory at the time when those facts occurred. And Article 31 of this convention stated also nothing in this convention shall affect any immunities or privileges enjoyed by a contracting state in respect of anything done or omitted to be done by or in relation to its armed forces when on the territory of another contracting state. This is the first argument that says that they cannot claim immunity as this is made by its armed forces and has destroyed relatively a lot of property in Italy. So based on that convention, they have used this argument, which is Germany has a serious violation against human rights, which is the gravity of the charges or the action, criminal action that is made by Germany in Italy. And current international law contravenes the principle of jus cogens. Italy has been denied other type of redress, thus this is the only type of redress they can need. And this is last
was the argument made by Italy to Germany. So the court findings on this matter regarding Germany's state immunity, it is stated here that Germany acting thought not deprive its state immunity under customary international law. So the relationship between state immunity and jurisprudence, or jurisprudence are the highest law in international law, it will not deprive state immunity from members. On the other hand, while Italy has been denied that because it must not give the rights to make anything that considered to be against state immunity. So in this matter, Italian court findings that denied German state immunity is a breach by Italy to Germany under customary international law. So this decision made by Italy is not considered to be a legal decision, as it denied German state immunity on this matter.
In conclusion, the ICJ's ruling in Germany against Italy reaffirmed the enduring principle of state immunity, even in cases involving grave violations of international law. The court's judgment emphasized the importance of maintaining the procedural sanctity of sovereign equality, which is a cornerstone of international relations. However, the ruling also revealed significant limitations in the current legal framework, particularly in addressing individual redress for victims of war crimes. This case highlights a key tension in international law: the need to respect state immunity versus the pursuit of justice for serious human rights abuses. By exposing this gap in the legal system, the case underscored the challenges of balancing sovereign equality with accountability for violations. As international law continued to develop, the Germany against Italy decision serves a crucial reference point, calling for reforms that respect state sovereignty with ensuring justice for victims. Thank you.